All right. Today, our learning objective is the student will identify and draw medians, construct a centroid, and apply centroid properties. Our language objective is going to be the student will verbalize steps of how to construct a centroid as we debrief at the end of class. So as you can see, what you were supposed to grab is calculators and papers. Today we're going to be doing some extension of yesterday's notes. We saw yesterday there was some confusion on how to do medians and apply their properties, so we're going to get some extra practice here in a minute. And I just want to make sure that you've filled out everything in your notes sheet. We're going to organize all of our triangle centers onto one sheet, and so we're going to be using this as the weeks go on. That means you got to be responsible. Please don't lose this sheet, because you're going to put all 5 centers with four centers, with the last one being a little different. We'll get to that one when we get to it, but if you haven't already, make sure you have copied down the first definition, median and centroid. For now, we are going to look at the other sheet that you should have grabbed on the way in. That looks like this. It says notes extension, median and centroid. Looking at this, I know it is a centroid because it is created by 3 medians. I know these 3 are medians because they go from a vertex to a midpoint, and I know this is a midpoint because of the tick marks. Okay, same thing over here. Vertex to midpoint, and I see the tick marks. Vertex to midpoint, I see the tick marks. So for sure, since those are 3 medians, I know that point of concurrency, that central point, is called a centroid. Okay? Now, we talked about the parts and the whole yesterday. We talked about the fractions. Off to the side here, I'm just going to make a note. Okay, the small part of the median is supposed to be 1/3 of the whole. The larger part of the median is supposed to be 2/3 of the whole median. And obviously the whole median is the small and the larger part added together. Okay? So, let's look at number 1. BC equals 12. The first thing I want you to answer on any of these is off to the right. What is the thing that they give you? BC is what? So you tell me, from B to C, is that the small part, the larger part, or the whole median? It should be the larger part. Okay? So, if I know BC is 12, okay? So, if I were to draw my median, okay? B, C, G, okay? I know from B to C is 12, all right? We talked about yesterday. If you know a part, it's easy to get the other part, okay? So if you have the larger part, to get the smaller part, you're going to divide by 2, okay? How do I know that? Because if the larger part is 2/3, and I want the small part, which is 1/3, remember, to get from 2/3 to 1/3 is just half, okay? So anytime you are given the larger part, you can find the smaller part, which is just half of that, which is 6, okay? Now, if I was looking for the whole thing from B to G, I would add those up. But what are we actually looking for here? CG. Do I know CG? Well, I just labeled from C to G is 6, right? So CG equals 6. Cool? So again, if you're given the larger part, find the smaller part by dividing by 2, and then answer whatever they give you, okay? So in this case, they were asking for the smaller part. We were already done. You don't add them together unless they're asking for the whole thing. What about number 2? Okay, so on number 2, if AC equals 10, what is the length of AF? So, again, I'm thinking of my median. So AC is the larger part, CF is the smaller part, and I'm given AC. Now, is that the small part, the large part, or the whole median? Well, just like last time, AC is the larger part. So if I know that AC is 10, remind me from the last problem, from number 1, how do I get the smaller part? Dividing by 2, right? So, what is 10 divided by 2? 5, right? So AC is 10, so CF, the smaller part, is going to be 5. Cool. Now, this time we're actually looking for AF, which is all the way across, right? So if I want to find AF, all I got to do is add up AC plus CF, or I'm adding 10 plus 5, and that gives me a grand total of 15. So AF equals 15. Do you see the difference between number 1 and number 2? On number 1, we went from big part to small part, and the answer was the small part, because that's what they were asking for. On number 2, we went from the big part to the small part. We had to add them together because they were asking for the whole median. Okay. What about number 3? BG equals 27. So again, considering BG, we're going to draw our median, which is BCG. Okay, BG is 27, the whole thing. Okay, now we're looking for CG, right? So if I'm looking for CG, I'm going to ask myself, is CG the big part or the small part? And I see that CG is the small part. So remember, the small part is 1/3. So I was given BG, the whole median, right? Now, when you're given the whole median, you're going to have to multiply times a fraction, for sure. So, to find CG, you're going to figure out the fraction, which is 1/3, like we said, times, and the whole thing is 27. Okay? So I want you to notice, when you're given the whole thing, you're multiplying that whole thing times some fraction, whatever you're looking for. And in this case, we're looking for the smaller one. So 1/3 times 27, if I type that in my calculator, I'm going to get an answer of 9. Okay? So CG equals 9. Okay? Let's look at number 4. If CE equals 7, okay, so I'm looking up here. All right. So that should be E right there, I believe. Yep. So DCE is my median. It gives me CE, and I'm looking right here, CE is the smaller part, right? So CE is 7. Now this time I want to go from the small part to the large part. So I'm thinking of doing the opposite of my first step on problem number 1 and 2. Instead of dividing by 2, to go from the small part to the larger part, you're going to multiply by 2. It's twice as big. To go from 1/3 to 2/3, that's multiplying by 2. So if I know CE, the small part, okay, is 7, the bigger part, larger part, DC, is double that. That's going to be 14. Right? Now what am I looking for? DE. So I'm not looking for DC. The answer is not 14. It's all the way, the whole median. So I'm going to have to take 14 and 7 and add them up. And 14 plus 7 for DE is going to be 21. Okay? 5 and 6. If CG is 5, so CG is part of BCG. Okay, so draw my picture. CG is 5. Okay, so I see CG is the smaller part. I need the larger part. So remember, like the problem we just did, going from smaller part to larger part, you're multiplying it by 2. That means BC is going to be 10. And that's what I'm looking for, BC. I just doubled CG. I multiplied it by 2. The larger part is 10, and I'm actually looking for the larger part, BC. So BC equals 10. Okay? One more. If DE is 15, so check me out. I got DCE is my median. It gives me DE is 15. Guess what? That's the whole thing, right? DC is 15. I'm looking for CD. Now, remember, when you're given the whole median, you're going to have to multiply by a fraction. Okay? I'm looking for CD, which is actually the larger section, which I know means 2/3, right? So take that whole length. So CD equals the whole length times the fraction, in this case, the larger part, so it's going to be 2/3 times 15. If I multiply that in my calculator, I'm going to get 10. Okay, so CD equals 10. So I tried to show you every single type of problem you could possibly get. You might be given the whole median, you're going to have to multiply by a fraction. If you're given the smaller part, you multiply by 2 to get the larger part. And if you're given the larger part, you divide by 2 to get the smaller part. I gave you every single type of problem on here. I want you to use that to try the extension practice on the back. Okay? Guess what? I gave it the same format. I scrambled the numbers, I scrambled the questions. You got to identify what have they given you and use that to get what they're asking for. Flip it over if you get stuck, and that'll help you out. Okay? Go ahead and get started on that, please.